pick up where we left off. Close Sydney out here. All right, we got this one open. We've got this one open. All righty.
Yes, but there's also women that chose to go on OnlyFans.
Oh yeah,
that's why I'm saying.
I'm just saying. I think those women tend to regret it.
But I'm saying, like, I don't like blaming your.
I want to say this is where we left off last time I covered this video.
Decisions on society, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for the decisions that you make.
Right, but your education is responsible for forming the way that you think about things.
No, but there's people in the same education and they make different decisions.
When I mean education in the broad sense, meaning how people are raised, which gets to the point of marriage. Like,
but I know there's people that that are raised in bad environments and choose not to do that. Everyone has everyone's got free will.
Does everyone that goes on Micheal Knowles' show start drinking? I mean, I would need to be drinking to deal with this guy, but I'm just saying, I've noticed it's a pattern with like all the chicks that have been on his show is they're drinking. She's drinking. What's her name? Oh shit. Lauren Southern. Yeah, Lauren Southern. Yeah, she's on there drinking on his show. Must be a rule if you go on Micheal Knowles' show, you get sloshed, I guess.
Will, Michael.
Sure, but we're also shaped by our social context and our educations.
Right, but aren't you? You're responsible for the choices you make, right?
I'm a moral agent.
I
certainly,
am. Okay.
But I'm more morally free to act the more that I can discipline my lower passions and bring them into accord with my rational will, which is why I'm discussing marriage as a matter of reason. So I guess the question you'd have to ask is, even before we can say whether or not you want to give advice to men, but should they or shouldn't they? What is marriage for? Like, what's the point of it? So what's the point of marriage?
In the West today, nothing. Let's be honest. Well, it's a retirement plan for the woman today.
I think that the point of marriage is, is to create a union.
It's a retirement plan for the judge as well, by the way, in the divorce case.
It's supposed to be you are submitting to your husband's authority and you're creating a family.
And creating a family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Family,
so it's forming a union with certain roles and a structure, and to create a family.
And do you think?
Correct. That's what it's supposed to be biblically, for Christians anyway.
I think that's how it's being used today for the average person. For the average person.
Yeah, it forms a union. It creates a family.
The average marriage is 7 years.
Yeah, but it's a union.
But
I think there's.
Michael, are you really this dumb? Really? Are you lying to yourself? Are you this dumb? I don't know. I'm confused.
But
I think that.
Oh, it's 7 years, but it's a union. Hey, it's a union. It's 7 years, but it's a union. So just go out and do it.
Yeah. How about no?
Those are some basics.
The average marriage is 7 years.
Right, but that still forms a union and often creates a family. That's what you're talking about, the struggles.
Right, but it's supposed to be for life.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of your bosses, some of your direct superior in your company, I'm sure some of his probably relatives make a lot of money dealing with the divorce cases that result. I'm sure that's why you're out here shilling for men to get married, so that your boss's relatives and friends and whatnot stay employed indefinitely. Oh, we got the spinning wheel of death. Maybe I said too much.
Not for now.
I agree.
And that's what I say. It's not about what ought to be. It's about
YouTube. I didn't say the Small Hat Tribe. I didn't call Ben out by his last name. I didn't do anything. Come on. Don't give me the spinning wheel of death.
What is today. And right now, a man cannot have children in this country and not be signed up for the state contract. So
that's always been true.
I think, but
no, Michael, it has not been true always. It has not always been a state involved in it.
My point is, why can't we change the laws first?
The state primarily got involved in marriage contracts. In most states, it was to promote segregation. That's what the state got involved for, Michael. And then they realized, oh, hey, you know what? We can make a lot of money in divorce court. So they've stayed involved in it.
First.
Because we live in time and space, and you'll die alone without having had kids and without.
Oh, you'll die alone. You'll die alone. Oh, no. You'll die alone. Oh, no, says Michael Knowles. You'll die alone.
Yeah, Nikola Tesla died alone, and his impact is still felt on the world today. I would rather be Nikola Tesla than, have a bunch of kids that I never get to see that, I don't know, maybe my wife took them somewhere in California and got them transitioned. If you're, listen, Michael, if your wife takes your kids to California and decides that they're troons now, where's your legacy? Your legacy's gone.
Without having
Why?
I mean, you're so concerned about my legacy. Well, all it takes is your wife divorcing you and taking your kids to California and transitioning them, and your legacy's gone.
family.
Why? You guys are one of the most influential media networks.
We are.
And
we're very persuasive, very powerful.
You guys are.
And yet we're not changing the divorce laws. Try as we might.
Yeah, gee, I wonder why that might be. I wonder why you're not even talking about it hardly, other than when Pearly's putting you on the spot here. I wonder why.
Hasn't happened.
No, but you guys barely cover it.
I talk about it all the time. What are you talking about? I talk about marriage on my show probably every single day.
Right, but
marriage, not divorce, not the family court. Stop the cap, Michael.
But when we talk about specifics, I was, talking about the tender years doctrine.
Yeah.
It's like even in California.
Sure,
If a woman lies about paternity of the child and it's not found out before the age of 2, that man's on child support for life, even though that woman committed fraud. And these are real things that happen in this country.
Zombie bomb. Never thought I liked hot tea, but I tried some a couple weeks ago and it's pretty good. I think I need more of that. Yeah, well, it's always good to try new things because you never know what you're going to like, right?
Country.
The man is on, if the father doesn't discover that he's not really the father.
Yeah.
Because he's acting basically as like a duped adoptive father or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again.
Because the way the laws are is it goes in the best interest of the child, which generally means the best interest of the mother.
Right. But you do not need to convince me that the divorce laws are dreadful.
Right.
What you do need to convince me of is that men ought not to be married until the laws are changed.
Why do men have to sacrifice their security for women's security? Women have made the choice to leave marriages. Women have made the choice to collect alimony and child support. Why do men need to sacrifice their security for women's?
Because it is good for men to be married and to have.
For who? It's good for men to be married for who? For who, Michael? Who is it good for? Who is it good for? It's good for the divorce judge at the family court. It's good for his wallet, her wallet, whatever.
Have children. It's not that they're forced or coerced.
Then why?
It's good for them.
But then why?
Again, Michael, is it good for you if your wife ends up divorcing you and taking your kids to California and transitioning them? Because then what happens to your legacy if that happens? I'm not saying that will happen. Maybe you married a good Christian woman. I kind of doubt that since she doesn't even share your last name. Oops. Shoot. I'm gonna play this
is the reputation of marriage.
I'm pull that up while I play.
So bad. If this was a great product,
I don't think it's so bad. I think it's the most popular institution in human history.
Because no, that's not true. Because you're out of touch. Why do we have phrases?
If it's so popular, why is it going down? Why is there such a record low number of men getting married? If it's so popular, Michael.
It's just like happy wife, happy life. Why do we have phrases like it's cheaper to keep her? Why are those these aren't made up, Michael?
Right, they're kind of funny little jokes about marriage, which is the enduring institution,
right,
the popularity of which is attested to by its permanence throughout human life.
True? Why do they ring true?
They don't really ring true to me. Happy wife, happy life wife, happy life is a recipe for a terrible marriage.
We agree. Yeah, we agree.
Right. But it's kind of a joke. I mean, we make little jokes about that. The Henny Youngman line, "Take my wife, please." I might use that line, but I don't mean it.
Why is that funny?
Because
it rings true.
Because it's ironic. Quite the opposite.
No,
right? It's funny because it's ironic.
No, it's funny because this stuff rings.
It's true. You bicker with your spouse sometimes. That's the truthful part.
Mm-hmm.
The ironic part is you don't actually want to give your wife away and take my wife, please.
Okay.
Alyssa Mahler. This is Michael Knowles' wife. She didn't even take your last name. Just saying. And you guys have 2 sons. Okay. So imagine, Michael, Alyssa wakes up tomorrow and she says, I'm not happy and I'm leaving you. And oh, by the way, our sons are troons now. Our sons are actually your daughters, and you're a bigot for not recognizing them. And I'm taking them to California and I'm transitioning them. What are you going to do about that, Michael? I know you think that's never going to happen, but it could happen. I mean, you're such a conservative, you couldn't even convince your wife to take your last name. Like, I would not marry a chick if she was refusing to take my last name. If she's like, oh yeah, I'll marry you, I'll give you 6 kids, I'll be traditional, I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll do all this, but I'm not taking your last name. Well, no deal, Mr. Conservative.
Okay, well,
Right.
but okay, it's cheaper to keep her. That's a phrase, right?
Yeah.
Why does it exist?
It exists because divorce laws are so bad, and that's
Okay.
what the joke is.
Okay, so again, if the marriage contract is so good, why do you have to convince men to sign up if they're getting such great benefits from marriage?
Because we live in the reason that we need to convince people to get married is because liberalism has inculcated in people.
Oh yeah, it's all liberalism, huh? It's all liberalism's fault. Okay.
An extreme individualism that and an extreme
The liberals today are all about communism. What's individualistic about communism? I mean, libertarians are all allegedly, supposedly, they're supposed to be all about individualism, but I don't know, a lot of libertarians are disappointing. A lot of so-called libertarians are kind of disappointing.
subjectivism that disconnects their actions and their interests from reason and objective reality and the common good. That's the actual reason why, and it's not just pertaining to marriage. It pertains to building up wealth. It pertains to duties that are owed to the family, to the community, and to God. It pertains to all aspects.
Building up wealth for who? So your wife can take it and share it with the divorce court judge?
Aspects of public life. It's not just marriage, but because marriage is the fundamental.
I'm not obligated to the divorce court judge. I'm not obligated to get married to fund some guy that wears pajamas to work to fund his retirement. I'm not obligated to get married for that reason. You're not selling me on marriage, Michael.
Political building block. You see it expressed there.
I'm not against marriage, but I think that men, regardless of what I say, because I'm not going to convince the entire country to get married. Like, no matter what I say.
You don't seem interested in doing so.
Because I don't talk about what I want the world to be.
You talk about how dreadful marriage is.
I don't talk about no, there's good marriages, Michael. But marriage as we do it today is not marriage anymore. And I cannot fault men for being cautious. And some men just aren't going to get married because the laws are too favorable to women.
So Michael Knowles has bitch think. Michael Knowles thinks because he does things a certain way that everybody does things that way, and that's just not true.
And I think that, okay, I'm going to tell a story. I want you to not interrupt me.
Okay.
Can you please not?
I need to.
Yeah, he's going to interrupt.
Time. I would never interrupt a lady.
Okay.
Uh-huh. You're gonna eat those words in a minute, Michael.
So I do interviews of men that have been divorced often. Okay. And there was a guy I interviewed, and he married a Christian woman. Okay. Good Christian woman, no kids, not overweight, no tattoos.
Checks all the boxes.
No glaring red flags.
Here we go, interrupting. One.
Okay. They have 2 children together. And what happened was one day he comes home. And when he comes home from work, the wife has filed a temporary restraining order on him. Women can get these just like that. He's kicked out of his house. No trial, no evidence, no nothing. Okay. Now he has to wait. It's during COVID. So he has to wait a year and a half to even get to see his children. Okay. And even fight for them. And by the time he gets to court, the mom's been in the kid's ear saying how terrible of a person he is. Okay. Now they go to court and they say to him, well, you haven't been in the kid's life for a year and a half, even though she lied about the abuse and they figured that out in court. This man had, and I saw his court documents, text evidence that this woman was planning to do this to him. In the year, he still had to pay the mortgage on the house. He still had to pay child support in that year and a half period.
Mortgage on the house that he's not allowed to live at.
Goes to court. Now, he doesn't get access to his children. He hasn't seen his kids in 2 years. Michael, they live a mile from him.
That's awful.
A mile.
You interrupting again. That's twice, Michael.
He's so stressed out. He loses his job. Because can you imagine going through that? And he's an average earner. He's not like, because I've interviewed men that make, I interviewed a guy from Texas. He spent $1.5 million on a divorce. He got his kids every other weekend. And these are real things. And Michael, the saddest thing that you see is a man.
Not kind of interrupting a third time.
I've interviewed so many men that I would not be surprised if they committed suicide in the next year, because the woman has completely ruined their reputation. She's called him an abuser, all of this stuff. So his friends, it's completely different with his friends. His kids think he's the bad guy. He's out of money, and he has to start over at 40, 45, 50 years old. And men are 9 times more likely.
What do you mean start over?
I'm Michael Knowles. I would never interrupt a lady. 4 times later. There we go. 4 times later. I would never interrupt a lady. 4 times later. Here we are.
Start over as in money. Like he has to start his life over. They're wrecked. They are wrecked in these. And the problem is in family court, it's not based on evidence. It is not. It is based on a balance of probabilities, meaning it is more likely that he did it than he didn't.
Yeah.
And women are not.
Yeah, meaning the family court isn't legitimate. That's not really what a court is for. Balance of probabilities. It should be based on evidence, not he said, she said.
Punished for falsely accusing men of abuse because they've changed the definition of abuse.
And we believe her because she's, a certain gender.
And these are, even if it's 5% of men that this happens to, let's say out of 100, this happens to 5%, even in the Christian churches. I would never, if I got on a plane and there was, there was a 20% chance of I get to paradise and there's a 5% chance of it crashing.
Pearly, I'm just curious with your math here. What are the other 75% chances? There's 5% chance your plane crashes and a 20% chance it's going to, I don't know, Bora Bora or Tahiti or somewhere. What are the other 75% chances? Where does it go then? I'm just curious. Your math isn't adding up here.
I'm not.
I get the analogy. I'm not understanding the math here.
Getting on.
Right.
And you have to understand, this is death to a lot of men. The idea.
And yeah, if there was a 5% chance the plane was going to crash, I probably wouldn't get on either.
Yeah, that they can't see their kids that are a mile from them. They're sending them money. And Glenn, a guy he's one of the guys that happened to.
Yeah.
And he didn't, it's like a lot of these guys did everything that you guys say. And when you guys say get married young, a lot of these men don't know what they're signing up for. And you're not going to be there when their entire life falls apart. I interview them on the other side. And that's why when you just say, just find a good Christian girl and get married.
That's not exactly what
I'm paraphrasing.
But
I've heard you say that multiple times, Michael. I've heard you say, just find a good Christian girl. I've heard you say this before.
But when you say, which is the minority, that's not the majority of women. We know that's not the majority of women that are praying every day. That are going to Latin Mass. I'm Catholic. Most of the women I went to school with are not practicing now. So this is not the majority of women. And I just don't think, I think sometimes you minimize the risk. Out of every 100 divorces, and I know we were going to go back and forth on the numbers, but just trust me that I'm not making this up. It's 30% are malicious. And by malicious,
they're all malicious, actually.
No, I don't say that. And I'm not anti. Okay.
I think divorces.
Fair.
All divorces are malicious, huh? Okay. Michael, in the rare circumstance where the guy actually is going Mike Tyson on his wife, yeah, I don't think it's malicious of her to divorce him, but she has a fault. There is a fault there. It's not no fault. And I don't think that's malicious of her if she's getting, I can't say that word, used on YouTube. I don't think that that's malicious of the wife to divorce in such a case. But how often is that compared to she wakes up and she's not happy?
Fair, but when I say malicious, I mean alienating the child or the father from the kids, putting them on child support, alimony. So that's 30. That's around out of every 100 divorces, around 13.
Yeah.
So
again, I would say it's higher.
That's not, but that's not an insignificant number. Men, I interviewed a guy. He spent $1.5 million on a divorce.
Yeah.
He gets to see his kids every other weekend.
It's awful.
It's awful, and that's why.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
We could go back and forth about the numbers, but I've seen so many men on the brink of suicide, and they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, well, I don't know that they didn't do anything wrong, but I agree.
Let's see, how long has the stream been going for? The stream has been going almost an hour. 5 men have ended their lives in the time that this stream has gone on. By the time we hit an hour, 6 men will have ended their lives. Wait a minute. I'm doing the math wrong. No, 10 men. 10 men will have ended their lives by the time the stream is over. Because 1 every 6 minutes offs themselves. But Michael seems pretty dismissive of this.
The situation is just dreadful. We all do terrible things, and they're before they're great.
I need to figure out how to do a counter for that to put on here every 6 minutes that goes by. I don't know.
God go all of us.
That's kind of morbid of me, but I don't know.
Us, because we're all sinners. The fact that something went so terribly wrong in their marriage suggests that, well, there's no such thing as no-fault divorce, so there was fault somewhere.
There's no such thing as no-fault divorce? Really? Well, we have no-fault divorce, Michael, under the law. I don't know where you're getting this, that there's no such thing as no-fault divorce, unless you're saying it's always the dude's fault because he picked wrong. If that's where you're going with this, I mean, I can't agree with you on that.
But we agree so broadly that I'm not exactly sure what we disagree about. We agree that the divorce court system is dreadful. We agree that the divorce laws are terrible. We agree that modern dating is challenging. But I guess.
So what I would say to switch.
But you're not doing anything about it, Michael, because you're happily married and you don't think it's going to happen to you.
Things. I think men shouldn't vote for either party because neither party is taking their issues seriously. I mean,
the issue of divorce.
Where is?
I mean, she's right. Look, I am in California, and I don't feel like my vote matters. If I move to Iowa, I don't think I will, but if I was somewhere like that where it's always so close, it's a swing state, I would feel like it mattered a lot more. But I'm not in Iowa. I'm in California, and I'm going to vote in this next upcoming election. I'm going to vote for Trump, and that's it. I'm going to unregister to vote after that because I don't think it matters in this state. I really don't. I'm not a big fan of it. I've done it to honor my parents because they asked me to, but I'm to a point that it's like I'm so fed up with it. I don't think it matters.
There's mandatory DNA testing. I mean, people differentiate.
I would not
on
like
these
mandatory.
People that, well.
Michael Knowles is against mandatory DNA testing. So Michael Knowles is pro-cucking. Michael Knowles would be okay with his wife banging Tyrone and one of his kids being slightly darker than the two of them. He would be okay with that. He would rather pretend that if Alyssa cheats on him with Tyrone, he would prefer to just pretend that that's his kid. Remember, this is his wife right here. She doesn't have his last name. Remember that. Because I'm going to bring it up again.
Men up to 30, I mean, it's disputed. I don't want to go back and forth all day, but a significant number of men are raising children that are not theirs. The
line of.
I mean, I've heard it's as high as 38% in the States, but
There's a line in, I think it's the Odyssey, of where the son of Odysseus says, it's a wise man who knows his own father. It's true.
What does ancient Greek poetry have to do with our modern society, Michael?
It's been true for a long time.
Okay, well, I don't know what that has to,
Well, you raised
ancient Greek poetry where their gods were not just bronze statues, but actually coming down and like partaking in their battles. That's the kind of fantasy you're citing here, Michael. You're citing that. And I don't know. I'm just saying that.
The question of paternity, and I'm saying this has been a longstanding trope in the Western tradition. Go back to the earliest days.
But my point is they're not taking men's issues seriously. I don't think either party is. So I think really if it was up to me, I would say men don't vote until one of the parties starts taking you seriously. Sure. I think.
And my decision that after the next election to unregister has nothing to do with Pearly. I've felt this way for several years now, and I'm to the point that I'm fed up, and I'm just going to do it. And I've explained it to my parents, and they do understand my frustration. So.
I think the left should try to buy him, not buy him, but like, you know, if Biden came out tomorrow and said, hey, we're going to make divorce and family court more fair. We're going to, you know, we're going to do mandatory DNA test. You might disagree with that.
I wouldn't like that.
Okay, well,
I find that too.
Yeah, Michael would rather be cucked by his wife, is what he's saying. He would rather raise the bull's kid, is what he's saying. Now, I wouldn't take Joe Biden's word if he said he was going to do these things Pearly just suggested. I would actually have to see those things take place. I'd still be reluctant to vote for a Democrat, but I would have to see a Democrat actually do those things and demonstrate that they give a shit about lowering the male suicide rate and increasing, you know, increasing marriage, increasing the birth rate, lowering no-fault divorce, all this stuff. The stuff that we care about, that we talk about over here all the time.
To be quite disrespectful to the institution of marriage.
Well, I think it's more disrespectful that women are lying to men about paternity. And that's a real problem.
Sure.
So
yeah, deceitful women, that's a problem throughout history.
Yes, it's been a problem since the beginning. Yes, Michael, it has been.
Right. And even if it's 2%, 1%, that's 1 out of every 100 guys. That's a real issue. And there's no penalty for women doing it, even though it's fraud.
Sure.
And so until the right and the left start taking men seriously when it comes to their, you know, their issues, I think men should bow out. But you know, this is Pearl's world.
But in Pearl's world,
yeah.
Again, so it's confusing because you say, I don't ever tell men what I think they ought to do, but you just said, I think men should bow out.
I think that would be a strategy, sorry.
Right, but you say the same kind of thing when you say, I think men ought to wait until the laws change before they get married.
Every man has to decide for himself.
You just told men what to do when it comes to voting.
Every man has to decide for himself what he does in his personal life. I think a good strategy could be that men walk away until the laws change. I think it's fair. Like, I think that's a good strategy. There are other ones. Maybe you could come up with some. You guys are one of the largest, you know, political media organizations.
Well,
but I think a better strategy for you guys would be to maybe start catering, you know, to start. Because I don't really think banning no-fault divorce would really change much. The culture would change.
I don't agree with you, Pearl. I think banning no-fault divorce would change a hell of a lot. I think it would change an awful lot about our culture. It's a start. It's a step in the right direction. I don't know. I think it's too late to fix America and the West. I really do. I don't think we can salvage it at this point. But it's a start.
Change a ton. You know, when they introduced no-fault divorce in 1969, I think it was, in Canada, the divorce rates shot up 500% within 2 years. Ending no-fault divorce. First of all,
well, I don't really care about when it got started in Canada. I know that it got started in California, in the 70s? Let me look that up real quick. No-fault divorce in California. When did it start? Oh, 1969. Let's refresh this tab. Okay, AI, say that again. I don't know if you heard that or not. The AI started reading it, but it's not reading it now. Let's try that again. Oh, so now that I'm sharing it with StreamYards, now you're not going to read it. Thanks. Okay, that's wonderful. No-fault divorce was first legalized in California in 1969 by then-Governor Ronald Reagan, who would eventually become the first U.S. president who had been divorced. Former President Donald Trump is the second. By 2010, every state had legalized a no-fault divorce option. So Micheal Knowles, who doesn't believe no-fault divorce exists, well, it's in every fucking state. And I don't know why he's talking about Canada when it's in California where it started. I don't know where he's coming up with Canada at. I know Canada and California seem to have a lot in common these days, but that's where it started, was here. And my grandmother took advantage of this in the 70s to divorce my grandfather and to drag my father all around the country because she decided to marry Hawaiian Air Force Chad. And but it does seem that Dad got raised properly. His stepfather was a good dude, but his mom eventually divorced that husband, and I don't actually know if she got divorced from him. I think she was living in basically bigamy with another dude at some point, if I remember right. But yeah, my grandmother was kind of a sleut. So, yeah. Fortunately, my parents have been married for like 40 years, and so they're a pretty good example. My dad's told me, when he went to get married, he wanted to be married for life. He didn't want to get divorced. And so they're a pretty good example for me to look up to. And you know what? My parents are one of the few couples that I know that are happily married, and they actually still like each other. So, just saying. I don't see very many couples that actually seem to like each other. Seems to be a lot of guys walking on eggshells. No, oh, it's cheaper to keep her. Oh, happy wife, happy life.
Well, no-fault divorce wasn't even...
And they seem like miserable people. Okay, Micheal, so we just debunked what you just said about no-fault divorce being in Canada first. It started in California, and it spread like a cancer across the United States. Micheal, no-fault divorce that you don't believe exists, by your own words.
Even recognized in liberal New York until 2010. That change alone, it wouldn't solve the problem, but it would go a long way towards
but that generation, a lot of them were separated anyways.
Separation is one thing. Divorce is quite another.
Because
that would mitigate all the problems you're describing.
I would be for it. I just don't see that getting passed anytime soon.
Yeah, it's probably not going to get passed. We're probably going to have a collapse before it occurs. One hour and 6 minutes. So in the time this stream has been running, 11 dudes have roped themselves.
I don't see any of these laws getting passed. That's why I'm telling men don't put off your life and put off having a family until the laws get passed.
Well, I think we would have a lot better chance of getting them passed if that was the number one issue you guys were talking about. If that was the number one issue.
It is. I don't think I'm exaggerating.
Okay.
It might be the number one issue I've talked about. I mean, I was just at CPAC, and I got in all sorts of trouble for saying that the way that people describe marriage these days is wrong, and marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman.
Right, but you would agree it's not how...
That's what it's supposed to be. It's not what we practice in this country.
It's practiced today.
It is how it's practiced by the people who have
Would you agree
marriages.
It's not how it's practiced today, not in the special religion, but by and large?
Again, when you say special religion, it seems to me you're trying to marginalize the Catholic faith or other faiths.
I'm Catholic.
It seems like you're trying to dodge the question.
I suppose, but I think you're marginalizing it anyway. But religion is just a habit of virtue that inclines the will to give to God what he deserves, right? So it's just kind of the way that one acts.
The reason I say that is because I grew up in the Catholic faith, and I don't think that exempts men from the risk of getting married. You know, one girl I interviewed, you know, she was from a Latin Mass, like one of those communities, and she had horrible parental alienation. I mean, her mother, there's a whole book that it's called How to Destroy a Man. And it lays out the framework exactly for how women can legally destroy a man, take his assets, take his children, and ruin his reputation.
I wouldn't recommend
this is
reading
a step.
it.
This is a step.
Oh yeah, your enemy writes a book explaining exactly what they're planning and how they're going to go about things. But Micheal says don't read the book. Don't read the book. Don't try and understand your enemy. That makes all the sense in the world, Micheal.
No, I've read it. No, I mean, not for that, but it's like a step-by-step guide. And this mother did it. And this,
I mean, Sun Tzu told you, hey, if your enemy publishes books or even poetry and it falls into your hands, you should read it so you get a glimpse into your enemy's mind.
This was in a Latin Mass, like Orthodox community. And that's why I say,
and there seems to be an unwritten rule that evildoers have to follow, that when they're planning to do something horrendous, they do seem to have to write it down. I don't know why, but that seems to be the rule that evildoers follow. Like all these elites that run the world, they always write white papers. They always write books saying how much they hate the masses and want to reduce our number by like 90% and stuff like that. And I don't know why they have to write these books. I mean, ego, I guess. I don't know. But for whatever reason, they always seem to write it down. And Micheal says you shouldn't read that. You should just go on, just go get married, just go to church, find a good Christian girl, Don't worry, there's no divorce court, because I'm Micheal Knowles, and I say there's no divorce court.
Because of these terms are sort of ambiguous and contradictory even in this case. So I'd be curious to see the actual case.
Well, I guess what I would say is sometimes women have feelings about religion at 22, and at 42 they change. And there's no consequence for women leaving right now.
People change their minds at any given time.
Yeah, a lot of times they're writing the CC at 22, and at 42 they're like, oh, well, where's the good man at? I'm ready to settle down now. I want to have some kids now. Now that I got no eggs, empty egg carton, I ain't got no eggs.
Correct. But in fact, they're paid to do so. And so I will never shame men for making a decision that's right for them.
But you're going further than not shaming them. I think we've gotten to the point where you've said it's at least a good strategy to walk away from the institution of marriage until the laws have changed. You just said that.
I say, do whatever you want, guys. But
no, I said to me.
I said, regardless of what I say, men will walk away.
So let's establish men won't listen to Pearl, as you just said. Let's establish that you think men ought to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
We've long established. You also just said it is a good strategy for men to walk away from the institution of marriage until the laws change. You just said that.
No, I was talking about the vote.
They should walk away from the
voting,
the ballot box.
That was the ballot box.
Until I said. So at the very least, we've.
I said that's a strategy that men can do.
A good strategy,
but
not just a bad strategy.
I mean, how else? I mean, what have conservatives succeeded in conserving the last 50 years?
Not so much as the women's bathroom, I guess.
but so you're asking them to get on a team that's losing,
right? I mean, that's what Whittaker Chambers said when he left being a communist to become a conservative.
Right.
He thought he was joining the losing team. Maybe that.
You know, speaking of losing teams, I've got this theory that, Ronald Reagan even admitted that he considered joining the Communist Party back in, I think, the 30s, like 39 or something like that. And I've got this theory that maybe he did join the Communist Party, and maybe he was their Manchurian candidate. Like the I think it's 53 movie. Might have been 59, I'm not sure. The original Manchurian Candidate, not the newer one with Denzel Washington. Anyway, that's the kind of topic. I've got an idea about maybe starting a new channel for reviewing movies. I've noticed a lot of those have been popping up lately. Movie review, first time watching, those kind of channels. And I listen to those sometimes when I'm falling asleep. And Anyway, I've been thinking maybe I'll start one for, kind of reviewing movies, but with kind of a red pill MGTOW perspective, viewing the movie and reacting to it. That probably won't be on YouTube. That'll probably have to be either, I don't know if Rumble is the place for that, or Locals or something of that nature. But that's an idea percolating in my head these days about reviewing that kind of stuff. But anyway, that would be where I would get into that, reviewing my theories about Ronald Reagan and possibly being a Manchurian candidate. Because looking back with a red-pilled lens, it sure seems like Ronald Reagan did a lot of stuff that, kind of paved the way for the commies to be running rampant now.
Maybe that's the case. I mean, in the long run, we're all dead, and the world's going to fall to pot, and then the second coming will occur. But that's not an excuse to avoid doing what is just. And
my neighbor that I go to church with, he's in pretty rough condition. He's, I think, like 93 or something like that. He doesn't want to do any physical therapy or any of that kind of stuff. I think he's recovering from, I think his hip got broken or dislocated or something. He's recovering from that, but he hasn't been showing up at church lately. And kind of his whole attitude is, oh, well, the Lord is coming back pretty soon. So, and my thought is, well, maybe that's true, but maybe it's not true. Maybe the Lord needs you to be here for your grandchildren and your great grandchildren that are running around. Maybe you need to be a good influence on them for a while longer. Maybe it's not your time, it's the Lord's time. And you can want the Lord to come back, but doesn't mean he's coming back right now just because you're hurting.
And good and right and in line with our natural
but
desires.
But it's not unjust for men to not want to have children.
It's disordered. It's disordered for men not to.
We have priests.
I've always wanted to have children, but I've said this to people in church. I'm glad with the chaos we have in the world today. I'm glad I don't have children right now in this country. I'm glad I don't. I do want children someday, but I'm glad I don't have them right now. I don't know that I could deal with, definitely I don't know that I could deal with raising a daughter in this society.
Yeah. Clerical life.
Yeah.
Some are called by the
Competing with the whole internet, with social media, with the school, with all that stuff. I mean, I would have to homeschool my kids for sure if I had kids. But yeah, I don't know that I could handle it right now. I still want that someday, but I'm probably going to have to either go overseas and stay overseas, or I'm going to have to do like Chronic and be a surrogacy bro.
charism of celibacy.
Mhm.
But for most men, and by the way, they're called to the charism of celibacy in the priesthood because the priests act in the person of Christ, who is the bridegroom of the church. But for people who are not following a religious vocation, they're called to family life.
So the priests that are touching little kids are called to celibacy. Okay, sure, Michael.
If there are not enough wives, what are men supposed to do?
It's about 50-50 in the population.
If there are not enough wives.
So 50% of women are not wife material, Michael.
What are men supposed to do?
There is basically parity.
Error does not compute. Tread cuck mind brain does not compute. Error 304. Error does not compute.
Between men and women. So there are enough wives.
Okay.
No, Michael, there's not enough wives. Look, Radical Against Defeat talked about this in a stream about a week ago. It's maybe 2% of women in the West are worthy of getting married. Maybe 2%. So I can say, yeah, Nawalt. I'm not going to say Nawalt. I'm going to say Ewalt. I'm going to say enough women are like that. When 98% are, thoughts. And there's 2% that are like Amish or something. Okay. There's not enough of the 2% to go around for the majority of men that want to get married and have kids.
Okay. Well, then I'm sure you'll see a spike in the men signing up.
No,
for
I
marriage.
agree that there's a great deal of selfishness and liberalism, but I think that's the view that you are articulating, and the view of the red pill people is basically a view that presumes a liberal, secular, individualist anthropology that is.
I mean, I can't say if Pearly speaks for Red Pill or not, but Pearly doesn't speak for MGTOW for sure.
Contrary to natural reason.
I don't know that she should be speaking for the manosphere because she's not a man either. So I'm just saying.
And the flourishing of men.
No, I would disagree with that.
How am I wrong? You're saying men ought to just pursue their own interests regardless of, say,
I think
nature.
when you have a smoking gun, I mean, that's essentially what it, like, you know, I tell you these stories and you just say, sign up anyways.
I'm saying be prudent, but I'm saying be prudent in everything in life. You know, you could get in a car and get.
Yeah, and if enough of us are going our own way because we've been prudent and we've evaluated the landscape and we've said, there's no wives anywhere around me. There's very little wife material in this county, in this region that I'm at. And the ones that are wife material, they want to get with Chad and Tyrone. Yeah, well, okay, I guess I'll just stack my cash and enjoy my hobbies and my life and better myself. That sounds like a better use of my time than spending $300 on a date trying to impress a thought.
Get in a car accident because of the other day, a teenage girl driver, another girl hit me while I was driving. Yeah, but I'm not saying don't get in a car. I'm saying
but if I get into a car and I see 30.
I mean, I've never been in a car wreck, allegedly. At least I've never been in a car wreck that's involved anyone else that there were witnesses to, allegedly. There may be a certain tree out in the national forest that has a little bit of green and white paint on the side of it, but excluding that. By the way, I was completely sober in that incident. There was no alcohol in my system. I was just being young and dumb. Allegedly, of course. But yeah, I've never actually been in a car wreck involving another vehicle.
30% of people crashing, I'm not getting into that car, regardless of the 10% of people that.
And incidentally, when I hit that mud puddle, allegedly, I said, "Oh Jesus," but I wasn't saying it very reverently at the time. But I think the Lord understood because I could have gone down a hill and died, and I didn't. I got kind of hung up on a tree instead. So I was just driving a little bit fast for the conditions. Allegedly, of course.
Succeed.
But then even further, to use your airplane analogy, I guess the difference is getting on an airplane.
The other time I allegedly wrecked that truck. The other time it was somebody had their high beams and I kind of got blinded a little bit and the road was slick and I went off the road, but I don't know that I wrecked the truck too bad because I drove off. So landed in the ditch on the side of the road, but I did drive away. So didn't wreck it too bad. Had a log. I was carrying firewood, carrying logs I was going to cut up for firewood, and I had one of those go through my back windshield and come through. It almost ended up on the center console, and if it had been a little bit to the left, it could have hit me in the back of the head. So I kind of see that as God was looking out for me there too. It wasn't my time to go yet. So allegedly, I don't think the insurance company is listening. Probably not.
Airplane and going to Hawaii would be a nice thing to do, and I might like to do it sometime. Getting married and having children is not merely a nice thing to do that I might, in my subjective preferences, like to engage in, but it is an aspect of my nature. It is an aspect of my purpose to which I am aimed. That's the difference. That's why I say.
Do you think men's masculinity comes from marriage?
I think men's masculinity and virility comes from their nature as men.
Do you think, but you don't think it comes from marriage?
I think that marriage fulfills a man's purpose, and in as much as he is more a man, the more
it doesn't fulfill every man's purpose, Michael. Maybe it fulfills your purpose. I don't know if Chronic originated this phrase, but a man without purpose finds it in women. I've heard Chronic say that, but I don't know that he originated it. So, a man without purpose finds it in women. Exhibit A.
Or he fulfills.
Do you think marriage? You think marriage is a man's purpose?
I think that well, man's ultimate purpose is to know God and to serve him in this world and enjoy him forever in eternity.
Okay. But so it wouldn't be
but
marriage?
subsidiary aspects of that would be for
Let's see here. I would say 90% of women are not wife material. Yeah, I agree with that. Not enough virtuous, healthy, fertile women to go around. Exactly. Exactly my point, Raisin.
lay people, for instance, to get married, which is a symbol of Christ's love for his church, and to but even taking religion
but I'm
aside
asking,
for a second,
can I get a yes or no? Do you think?
Well,
it's
I'm
a
trying to
man's-
explain
okay,
to
go
you
ahead.
the answer to the question you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, what's a man's purpose? And my purpose in this conversation is to talk to you.
Okay.
That's one purpose.
Mm-hmm.
A purpose is also to get to the nature of this question of marriage.
Okay.
Another purpose is to communicate that to the audience. So there are all sorts of purposes that we have. We have higher purposes and lower purposes. And so when you ask, is marriage part of a man's purpose? I say it is. It's not man's ultimate purpose, but it is a symbol of his ultimate purpose, and it is a constituent part of his purpose and a natural end of his very nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the reason I say that you are adopting what seems to me a liberal and individualist anthropology here is because you are saying every man needs to make his own decision. Nothing's better or worse. I'm not recommending anything. I'm just, you do
you. Think every man should make the same decision?
In many matters, yes. Not between chocolate and vanilla ice cream, but between
do you feel like you
goods,
should tell men what to do?
In as much as I correctly perceive moral order, yes.
Okay. So you think that you know what's right for every man?
I think that I can. I have a relatively reliable. If you'd like me to answer, I think I have a relatively reliable faculty of reason and moral conscience, and so, in as much as it is reliable, I can articulate the truth as I see it, which is all anyone does. It's what you're doing. It's what all people do when we speak.
Yeah, I don't think it's really our job as commentators to tell people what to do.
But it's our job as human beings to perceive the moral order.
Okay.
Right, and to form judgments about that.
Well, I disagree that. I disagree. When you say it's the equivalent of feminism, because I'm
saying it's the equivalent of what you're articulating is a liberal and individualist view, and therefore
I don't know. Liberals seem like they're all on board with communism these days. That's not really about individualism. That's about the collective.
Similar to feminism.
I would say that right now marriage is a feminist institution.
Not mine.
Right? Well, if your wife...
Well, lucky you, Michael. Not mine. Lucky you.
...decides tomorrow she wants to leave you, it will be.
The divorce laws are informed by feminism.
Correct, correct. And so
but marriage is
regardless...
marriage is a natural institution that predates the states that currently...
Right, but there is no way for you to get married in this country and have children and not be a part of the institution of marriage legally.
Yeah, you have to sign up for the marital.
Correct.
Though you can mitigate risk even by...
So there's a whole business of lawyers making money off of marriage, of feminist women's shelters making money off of marriage, and you're saying, sign up anyway. And I think I would disagree that it's feminist because what you're saying is...
That's pretty much what he's saying. Remember, Mr. Conservative here, Mr. Michael Knowles, this is his wife. She didn't even take your last name, Michael. Like, that would not be acceptable to me if I was going to get married. A ship can't have two captains. This would be me if I got married. This is my opinion right here. Come on, load it up.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
Yes, that's me. If I got married, that's me. Look at me. I am the captain now. A ship can't have two captains. Come on, play again.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
I am the captain now. Does this look like the captain now of this relationship? I don't think so.
Sign up for the institution that is run by feminists.
Well, I guess you're putting those words in my mouth. Sign up anyway. What I am saying is men ought to do the right thing. That at the basis of the natural law is one precept, which is do good and avoid evil.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that we apprehend.
I mean, I don't agree with that, Michael. I don't think that's the natural law. That's the golden rule, but that's not the natural law. The natural law is the king is going to have a harem, and 60% of men are going to die in combat or from disease or whatnot. That's the natural law. We look at that with lions. You have one dominant male lion and a whole harem of female lions, and all of his male offspring get kicked out when they're big enough, and they have to go fight an old lion of another pride in order to spread their seed. Otherwise, they don't get to spread their seed. That's just the way it is. That's nature. If you're going to talk about natural law, that's nature. You know, monogamy is not natural, Michael. This is a human institution that we've done because we wanted civilization.
Is being, right? Is existence.
And it's been destroyed. It's been pretty well eroded, and so we kind of are seeing the collapse of civilization now.
The next thing that we apprehend, and this is the first thing we apprehend through our practical reason, which is oriented toward action, is good. Doing good. When you do something, you want to do good and you want to avoid evil. And so what I'm saying is that marriage and family, the end of marriage being the begetting and education of children, and secondarily the mutual support of the spouses, is good for man. So I'm not saying this isn't Michael's crazy view. I'm saying this is a natural part. It's why this has existed throughout all of human society everywhere. And it's why we are all inclined to do it. Whether or not Pearl or Michael wants it.
Okay, so do you think it's wrong if a man wants to build a business?
And depends what the business is.
He doesn't, okay, but whatever. And instead of pursuing women, he pursues his business. Instead of pursuing a marriage and a family.
I think it would be a mistake for a man to pursue material good to the exclusion of better goods.
Okay, what about coaching? What about teaching? Like, why?
I think our jobs in the commercial economy are good things, but I think modern liberalism and individual anthropologies make an idol out of that, and that is to the harm of men. We shouldn't make an idol out of our jobs. I like my job a lot, but it's not my whole life.
And the other problem you get into is, again, just because a man has kids, it doesn't mean that the kids will. I mean, you have men raising kids that grow up to hate.
I'm 34 raising.
I mean, even in the story that I showed
bad,
you.
Yeah, it's bad. But within marriage or divorce, you mean?
Both. Both.
Really
I've seen kids get alienated from their fathers.
How?
That are in the same household. It happens all the time.
Happen? I agree, it happens.
Well, I mean, the man's working, and so the mom spends more time with the kids. The mom's talking all day in the kid's ear. It's a really sad thing.
So you're saying the mom hates the dad?
Yeah.
That seems to be a problem that predates the alienation.
No, it totally is.
It
totally is. And,
and the schools and the TV, and everyone says the men are dolts and idiots. Yeah, I agree. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it. It's almost like the culture is toxic towards like the nuclear family, the traditional marriage. It's almost like the whole culture is toxic towards it, Michael.
Yeah, but that's my point, is just because a man has kids, it doesn't mean his legacy will live on.
No, again, I don't think the kids are the chief
Yeah.
end of man in the world, but I do think it is an important aspect of it and an expression of it. And you can raise kids who are likely not to hate you. There are things that you can do and things that you can avoid that will increase that likelihood.
I mean, that's
I mean, it's still a chance, Michael, just like it's still a chance you'll get divorced.
true, but there's no guarantees, and I think
No guarantees of anything
and
in this life, Pearl.
I think it's a higher risk.
There is a guarantee, Michael. If you live in a civilized country and you work and you make money, you're going to have to pay taxes of some form, and you are going to die. Those are guaranteed.
And I think I would really encourage you to spend a couple days in family court. I think it would really
Yeah, I mean, I've had
view.
close friends who have been in brutal divorces. I mean, I've seen a little bit of it up close. It's dreadful.
Yeah, and at times, they didn't really do anything wrong.
Yeah, because they've all done something.
If women,
yeah, it's all their fault, huh, Michael? It's all the men's fault, always.
Feel like leaving, they can leave. We can leave.
They can, but how does the marriage break down? It's like Hemingway describes bankruptcy in The Sun Also Rises. Happens gradually and then suddenly. So it seems to me, I'm not letting women off the hook. Sometimes crazy, feminist ladies go nuts and divorce their husbands and poison, the kids against their father, and they do all sorts of terrible things. But marriage is a union of two people, and I agree with you. A lot of people, when they get into marriage these days, including the men, especially the men, not only don't know what they're signing up for, they don't even really have a vision of what they're signing up for. They don't even know what they want to be signing up for.
Correct.
And so that's a mistake. That's an error on the part of the men often and of the women. But the men are the head of the household, so more responsibility falls onto them. And then the way
they're supposed to be the head of the household, but we live in a society where the government kind of has taken that role over, Michael.
They lead their lives, I would say.
But do they get authority too?
Who do they give authority to?
No, do the men have authority in their own households?
Nope.
The good marriages, they do.
Would you say that's?
I'm in good marriages, like mine. Yeah, I'm Michael Knowles. I'm in a good marriage. I get authority in my house.
I mean, he's a little while ago, he was against paternity tests being mandatory. So he's okay with his wife cucking him, apparently. So, yeah, sure, you've got authority in your house. Right, Michael.
That's the majority?
Well, I don't know. I mean, these days people say that two men can be married. So, people are very confused about what marriage is.
And what's the divorce rate of two fagots being married? What's the divorce rate? It's like 16%. You know what? Let's look that up. Let's share this tab instead. Divorce rate for gay men. Oh, whoa. 2% of gay male couples dissolve their unions. 2%. I thought it was 16%. I don't know where I got that from. Divorce rate for gay women. What's the rate for them? Let's just see. %. Now it's saying for gay men, it's 7%. I don't know where AI is getting this information from. From the Netherlands is what's highlighted. What the hell? Maybe I need to put in US. That's probably what I need to put. In USA, yes. Okay, Wikipedia, that's not correct. I don't think it's as low as 2% for gay men, but I've heard it's like 16% for them. Divorce rates in the United States. Let's see. sharing this tab. Good. Women initiate around 69% of divorce proceedings. Average marital length. Maine and West Virginia have the longest marriages, are averaging around 22.3 years. Alaska and Nevada have the shortest marriages at 16.3 and 17.2, respectively. Interesting. So I wonder where Pearly got her number saying 7 years. Gray divorce. Someone over 50 initiating a divorce. Okay. Divorce rate by race. This isn't the stat I'm looking for. Oh, here we go. Divorce rate for gay men lower than lesbians. For fagots, it's 28%. It's 72% for lesbians. That's what, like 55% for normal couples? So, there you go.
Correct.
Yeah. But in the real marriages and the flourishing marriages.
So you had the one stat that said 2%. You had the one stat that said 28%. I've heard 16% for the fagots. So I guess that's probably where it's at. I don't know. Got new comments. What do we got? Nothing makes sense anymore. Yeah. I think monogamy is natural in humans. Ones that aren't brainwashed out of it. Yeah. I just want to find one woman that loves me and I can trust and have a family with. I don't want a harem. Maybe I am weird that way. Some guys do. I don't. Hey, I'm right there with you. I could be fine with one if I could find one. I don't even know where to look for dates these days. Sorry, I can't help with that. Lesbians don't like each other. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Start looking for places where you can go do stuff. Keep going back to the places where you see girls, talk to them. Yeah, it could be a good strategy. I have one friend who goes into bars but does not like the idea of dating girls he's met at a bar. I keep telling him to get to know them anyway. They will have friends who you'll meet who don't go to the bars. I don't drink. Well, I drink, but I drink at home. I don't drink that much anymore, but I used to drink a lot more, but I don't really drink much in bars. Like, I can probably count on one hand the number of drinks I've had at a bar. My point was that even just ending up only friends with a chick usually leads to meeting several others. Well, it's probably some good advice. All right, let's finish up with Micheal.
Marriages. Yeah, the men do have a headship.
What percent of marriages do you think are happy after 50 years?
Well, all I have to go by is the...
My parents are around 40. I think they're around 40 years old with theirs, and they do seem like they're genuinely happy.
General Social Survey and some of the Chicago studies that come as a result of that. And the evidence is that, according to...
I can't say I know too many other couples that have been married that long, and I can't say I know that many couples that are happily married.
Statistics and social
50%
science.
divorce.
Yeah, granted, anywhere from 40 to 50% divorce.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, according to the GSS, which is probably the biggest data set we have on this, the happiest people are men and women married with children.
But
Followed
why?
by men and
Why?
women married without children. Well, I'll come to that.
Okay.
Followed by followed by divorced parents without children, followed by divorced parents with children. And one Chicago study from last year showed.
I think we're going to call this right there.